A wealthy teen, Joan, realizes he's involved in a dangerous scheme that could cost him his life. After completing an art project late, he finds out that his girlfriend Luciana hasn't responded to his messages. He decides to continue working, putting his headphones back on and working diligently to find her. Joan's father informs him that Joan missed cello practice for a month, and he agrees. His mother advises him to take his father's words seriously. Joan's art endeavor fails, and he sets it on the floor at school before attempting to repair it with tape. A teacher reprimands Joan and takes him to the office. The story highlights the importance of taking one's father's words seriously. A man informs Joan that a teen's lack of sleep is affecting his grades. He suggests Joan to focus on his studies before failing. Before leaving, the teacher instructs Joan to sign a diploma stating Prof. Luciana is leaving, revealing that the person he was texting was a teacher. Joan is surprised as the teacher's final day is today. A youngster observes Luciana in the hallway and pretends not to see her. In art class, the professor advises students to complete assignments, causing sighs from the class. When she visits Joan's table, she scoffs and inquires about the project's status. Insulted, the kid exits without saying anything. Luciana finds the student sulking in the library and chastises him for his actions. Joan informs Joan that she is leaving without notifying him, and they meet at a location. Joan warns him not to do anything unsafe within the school. Joan then invites him to join them on a vacation if he doesn't have any commitments. Joan doesn't provide a clear response, but promises to call if he changes his mind. The teen becomes increasingly handsy, and Joan warns him about the dangers of unsafe activities. The teenager who lives with Luciana commutes to an empty apartment and answers a phone. Later, he takes the passenger seat in Luciana's car. Joan asks if she has packed her belongings, and she replies that only the few remaining are not transferred. He asks if she has any regrets, and she nods. She admits that while their relationship was enjoyable, it was inappropriate. She never regrets initiating their relationship. The student pleads with the teacher not to leave, but Luciana warns him that they have no future together and suggests finding someone his age. The professor admits she's ill and envisions them fleeing to her mother's house in Cordoba. The enamored student agrees, but the woman suggests driving him home. Joan wishes Luciana would reconsider, but she refuses to discuss it. The story highlights the importance of finding a suitable partner for a young person. The teen stops the vehicle and suggests they go on a vacation for a long weekend. The teacher agrees, and they exchange a kiss. They stop at a gas station, where Joan is instructed to stay in the vehicle. Luciana uses her phone to call someone outside, and the professor offers the kid a beer. An energetic song plays, and she dances in front of the car. A woman notices a student's sleepiness and urges him to rest. She promises to wake him up when they reach their destination. After a while, Joan wakes up to find he slept all night. They arrive at a secluded farmhouse, which Joan claims was her grandparents'. She brings clothes and hopes they fit him. The teacher instructs Joan to check out the pool, which is covered with leaves. Luciana pushes the adolescent into the water, leaving his backpack in the water. Inside the house, the furniture is wrapped in white sheets, indicating no one has lived there for years. The woman assists the adolescent in removing his wet clothes and admits to wrecking his phone. They kiss before getting into the shower. Luciana needs to rest, which the student understands after driving all night. He lies down next to her, wrapping his arm around her body. Joan removes white sheets from furniture and discovers animals grazing near the house. He starts a fire and invites a woman to go together. The student suggests they drive to the village for dinner, but the teacher fears judgment due to their age difference. Joan agrees to go alone, and Luciana gives him the car keys. Despite initial hesitancy, the woman joins the student, despite her initial reluctance. A teacher stops a vehicle after touching a teen, and they kiss. Luciana leaves while Joan pursues her. They make love on the ground, but he finishes early and apologizes. Later, they perform a deed in the bathtub. The teen claims he fell in love with her the first time he saw her. The teacher explains she first saw him playing the cello. They later make love in the bedroom. Joan discovers an instructor outside her house, claiming to be married. 2 French men arrive, and the kid welcomes them. Luciana, hiding a revolver, confronts the student about entertaining the intruders. Joan explains that they want to buy a house and wants to speak with the woman, as she had previously discussed selling the property. She pulls the student aside and informs him that they should not entertain the men. Luciana informs a teen staying in a remote house with an older woman, raising suspicions among the men. He apologizes and leaves. Joan confesses his love to the woman, promising to stay and not leave the village. He is feeling happier than ever and promises not to cut the trip short. Luciana also shares her love for him, and they execute the deed together. A woman, out of bed, squeezes oranges and places a glass of juice on the bedside table. Joan discovers the teacher's note stating she went to the village. Joan knocks off the table, breaking the glass. In the dining room, he prepares the table for supper. The front door is locked from the outside, and the windows are padlocked. Joan finds a broken window and squeezes his way through. Gustavo chooses flowers outside and visits the animals in the stables. He decorates the dining table with the flowers. Luciana unexpectedly assists Gustavo inside the house, surprising her. They help him to the couch, and the teacher instructs Joan to get a first aid kit for Gustavo's leg injury. The student asks for help, but the woman instructs him to wait for her. Luciana informs the teenager that Gustavo is her brother and is involved in dubious dealings. The instructor needs to nurse Gustavo back to health, so he will stay at home for a few days. Luciana wants the student to stay with them, as she doesn't want to be alone with her brother. Joan inquires about Gustavo's bed size, but Luciana responds that he is fine and she will stay in the adjacent room. The brother wants everyone to eat together. At dinner, a student tries to understand a man's agony due to his injury from rugby. Gustavo repeatedly mentions Joan's age and asks her sister if her husband is aware of the affair. Insulted, the teen storms out of the room. The man brings the student his supper and apologizes. Joan informs Luciana that he understands his presence irritates her brother and suggests he leave. Gustavo questions why he would want to leave, given his needs. A man blocks an irritated adolescent's path, causing him to be stopped by Gustavo. Joan, who is packing his luggage, notices the man near the doorway and knocks him out. Gustavo then secures the door with a padlock and clamps wooden boards on Joan's room window to prevent him from escaping. The teen awakens and learns he has been imprisoned. A man enters a room and punches a student, tying Joan to the bed. The student asks about Gustavo's knowledge of his father's position as a judge, and the captor responds. Joan believes this is happening to him because he is sleeping with the teacher. And Gustavo records a video of the crying teenager while the student's mother reports the incident to the police. The teen is found sleeping with newspapers, indicating authorities have been hunting for days. The teacher enters the room and respects Joan's upsetness but urges him to comply with Gustavo's demands. The student discovers Luciana making love with a man, revealing they lied about being siblings. Instead of telling Gustavo about Joan's presence, she instructs him to remain silent and returns to the room. A student is heartbroken and betrayed by a man. He sneaks out of his room, noticing Luciana in the kitchen. Joan flees and the teacher follows him. The student confronts Luciana about lying and asks her to tell him the truth about Gustavo. She fears he will kill her. The student suggests they leave together, but the man approaches unexpectedly. The student is left heartbroken and unable to comprehend the situation. A woman stabs a teen unconscious, and an acquaintance arrives with ransom money. Gustavo is happy to receive the money. As Joan is tied to a chair, the man confesses that the teacher's name is not Luciana. The woman approaches and pushes Gustavo's arm, insisting they kill Joan. Gustavo raises the weapon at the teacher, insisting they kill Joan. After she storms out, the man hands the weapon to his associate, who instructs the teenager to grab the tarp on the ground. Joan and Luciana confront a man who impales his skull on a metal rod while Gustavo stops her. The student confronts them, using the teacher as a shield. The man strikes Joan multiple times, but the student fights him off. They fall into a pool, and the student kills Gustavo with the scissors from his rucksack. Joan and Luciana drive away, and he notices horses racing alongside them. A young boy returns home after opening a money bag and letting bills fly out of his car windows. A woman tells him to leave the nation, but the student agrees to stay in the car and leave the money by the side of the road. Luciana chooses the money and Joan drives away. The devastated teenager sobs in the bathtub, covered in bruises, and later plays his cello while the woman rides the bus with the money sack close to her chest.